Mr. Wyndham Lewis, is this picture a very unorthodox piece of work?
Naturally, it does not conform to the standards of atrocious silliness of the Royal Academy.
Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity.
Youth is not wise. Youth knows nothing about life. Youth knows nothing about anything except a mass of cliches, which for the most part, through the media of pop songs, are just foisted on them by middle-aged entrepreneurs and exploiters who should know better. When we start thinking that pop music is close to God, then we'll think pop music is aesthetically better than it is. When you're told these things, you sit down with a sigh of relief. Thank God I don't have to learn, I don't have to travel, I don't have to exert myself in the slightest. I am what I am. Youth is youth, pop is pop. There's no need to progress, there's no need to do anything. Let us sit down, smoke our marijuana, an admirable thing in itself, but not the end of anything. Let us listen to our records, and life has become a single moment is eternity.
Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming.
Biology is not, or physiology, if you will, is not destiny, but it is half of it. Try to ignore that fact. You then get, at least so far as I can see any perspectives of the future, you then get into the most awful totalitarianism of them all, because it's a left totalitarianism. That means the end of all of us, because we will have nothing but scrambled minds trying to overcome the incredible shock that the destruction of human liberty came from the left and not the right.
I actually think that 1984 came to pass, that you might live in a society that rather rigorously limits your available behavior and that watches you to make sure that you do. But what's interesting is that it's not Big Brother, we're doing it to ourselves. The notion that every single thing we do is recorded, that not only every mouse click, but every purchase, that we can be tracked in every way, that there is no part of our lives, except maybe going to the bathroom, and that's soon to change, where we can truly be alone.
But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born.
And there is an element in women's liberation that terrifies me. It terrifies me because it's humorless. There's been almost no recognition that the life of a man is also difficult, and that all the horrors that women go through, some of them absolutely determined by men, even more than I suspect determined by themselves, because we must face the simple fact that there's a profound reservoir of cowardice in women which had them welcome this miserable slavish life. But in any case, whether it's their fault or men's faults, what has to be recognized is there's nothing automatic about female liberty. Every female liberty is going to be achieved the way every liberty is achieved, which is going to be achieved against the grain, against the paradox of the fact that there's much in human life which forbids liberty. The whole question of women's liberation is the deepest question that faces us, and we're going to go right into the very elements of existence and eternity before we're through with it.
Walked I deep in hell, believing in old men's lies, then unbelieving. Came home to a lie, home to many deceits, home to old lies and new infamy, usury age-old and age-thick, and liars in public places.
I think there will be a reaction against this communal dissociation. Man doesn't stand forever his nullification. There will be a reaction. When I think of my patients, they all seek their own existence, and to assure their existence against that complete atomization into nothingness or into meaninglessness. Man cannot stand a meaningless life.
I have gone at dusk through narrow streets and watched the smoke that rises from the pipes of lonely men in shirt sleeves, leaning out of windows. I should have been a pair of ragged claws scuttling across the floors of silent seas.
We start out the 20th century with this clean slate. We are now the gods. And the greatest thing that we could do as God during that century was create the bomb. That was what we were good at doing. And I think that in itself, in the 50s and 60s, the repercussions of what we had done by standing in for this idea of morality, ourselves, creating it all ourselves, so destroyed our fix on what we should be doing in life that we're still living through that chaos right now. We have no spiritual lives to speak of. There's quasi-new religions, but there is no direct sense of what our purpose is anymore.
It held unspilt so long and equably what since is found only in separation. Marriage and birth and death and thoughts of these, for whom was built this special shell.
It's possible for someone like Rilke to live with a kind of death of God feeling. To say to himself, God has been taken from the world along with so much else. I will now remake everything according to my own inner light and find consolation there. And to some extent that's what I do. But not everybody is Rilke. Most people deprived of this kind of consolation don't rise to the challenge at all. They sink a long way beneath it.
There died a myriad, and were the best among them, for an old bitch gone in the teeth, for a botched civilization, charm smiling at the good mouth, quick eyes gone under earth's lid, for too gross of broken statues, for a few thousand battered books.
Would you agree that the point of Fort Apache was that the tradition of the Army was more important than one individual?
Cut. In my study of history, in sexual personae, I'm always talking about the late phases of culture, and this is I was always drawn to the late or decadent phase of culture. Oscar Wilde is one of the great exponents of that in the late 19th century. And everywhere in the world, you find this pattern, okay, in ancient times, that as a culture begins to decline, you have an efflorescence, okay, of transgender phenomena, okay? That is a symptom of cultural collapse, okay? So rather than people singing the praises of humanitarian liberalism, okay, that allows all of these transgender possibilities, okay, to appear and to be encouraged, I would be concerned about how Western culture is defining itself to the world, because in fact these phenomena are inflaming the irrational and borderline psychotic opponents of Western culture.
If you are to make the brutality of life as it's transfigured in tragic art meaningful, you have to transcend those sorts of actions, or you have to have a vocabulary to transcend them. But the doctrine of transcendence is a religious doctrine, essentially, or is a psychosocial set of emotional and linguistic patterns which portends to religious belief, whether one has any religious belief or not. It means that one believes there are things above the things that face you, and there are things above that, and there are things above those things, and or at least there's the possibility that such might be the case. So you're looking upwards rather than looking downwards. This is why people go to tragedy and feel exhilarated afterwards, rather than feeling depressed or out of sorts or mildly mentally deranged by the depiction of cruelty. It's because it occurs within the context of a spiritual revelation which is transcendent.
I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough. Beside the fact that I'm dissecting a piece of cancer that we can look at and put in to make a biopsy from. I need some doctors to help me. I don't know. All I know is I'm making cuts and opening a wound so it can drain, the sun can get to it, or you can take it out and put it under a microscope and see whether it's cancerous or not. Obviously, it is the cancer of our world, our time, of all our times.
But the whole purpose of this sort of culture that we live in today, as Evola and other thinkers have put it, is not to have transcendence at all. It's to keep man at a certain level, ultimately a level of consumption, the expulsion of energy, the repletion of energy, consumption of goods, depletion of the consumption of those goods, the need to consume even more of such goods. If you keep people at a certain level, and the irony is that this is occurring within a maximally capitalist society dominated by ideas from the soft Marxian left. This is one of the great dichotomies that we live in, that we live in a left-wing market, that we live in a libertarian, left-leaning capitalist society.
Egalitarianism is also a source of apathy, and not just because in universal states people no longer trust each other, but also because egalitarianism is essentially nihilistic, because it destroys value. Something has value if it is different or unique. A world of difference has meaning. A world of equality is a world without meaning.
The actual modern world is losing its identity. The last step will be the end of the human identity. You could choose to be Christian, you could choose to be American, you could choose to be a woman or a man. We are losing our human identity, coming to the last point of human transformation. The concept that try to liberate these individuals from any existing links with community, with collective identity. They will continue the same strategy. They will declare the necessity to impose post-human identity and to make human identity as something optional. The challenge and the problem and the danger and the catastrophe is the ruling liberal globalist elite that tries to create world government, destroying any kind of organic community, organic society with prevailing collective identities. Transhumanist, post-humanist future.